Hi, this is Jeannie from Trendy Tree, and today I'm going to show you how to make this wreath. Very simple. We use a ruffle technique and a sign and some ribbons, and all the supplies came from Trendy Tree, and I'll give you the links for those, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is cut my mesh strips. I have 2 layers of mesh. I have the white fabric mesh, and then I have the snowed mesh, and I've got them just stacked on top of each other, and I'm cutting the pieces 20 inches. This is going to be the ruffle technique. And I'm using a rotary cutter. I'll give you a link for that. And I wanted to show you this, if you can see it completely. This is a wreath holder. It has 3 levels. And you put your mesh on here. It'll hold like 6 rolls of 10-inch or 3 rolls of 21-inch. And it has you bring the mesh under this little marker on the front, and then that just keeps it nice and smooth and makes it much easier to cut your mesh. And you can get this at Susie's Wreath Shop, and I'll show you, I'll give you a link to that. But the first thing I'm going to do right now is go ahead and finish cutting the mesh. I'm using a cutting mat. This is a reversible cutting mat. It has markings on it, and you can cut on either side of it. Now I'm using a 15-inch pencil wreath. I'm using a 24-inch pencil wreath. Now our 24-inch wreaths measure 15 inches across the widest portion, but with the addition of mesh, ribbons, and other things, you wind up with a wreath that measures 24 inches or greater. This is going to be the ruffle technique, which is one of the easiest ways to make a wreath. So I'm going to take my piece of mesh that's 20 inches in length and just scrunch up through the middle. I'm going to make a ruffle. And I'm going to put the fabric mesh on the bottom. I'm going to start on the outside of the wreath, and it doesn't matter where you start, but I'm just going to lay that ruffle in and secure that just to hold it. And then I'm going to take the snowed mesh and make the same kind of ruffle, and I'm going to put it on top. The snowed mesh is a much thinner, lighter mesh, and I just really wanted to use it for the difference in the texture, the snowed look. So I'm going to open that twist back up and lay the snowed mesh on top, and now I'm going to twist it. I'm going to twist it 3 or 4 turns because I think on this wreath I may just use bows. I may not do ribbon strips, and you can just kind of fluff that out. Now that's what a twist looks like with 2 ruffles. So I'm going to work all the way around the outer ring using that same 2 ruffles, and then I'm going to move to the inner ring and put 2 ruffles in each one of those twists. Oops. And when you cut your mesh, you know, I cut my mesh 20 inches in length because I wanted to use up all the mesh on both rolls, and I needed 18 pieces of each style of mesh. My last piece is a little shorter than 20 inches. That's okay. It won't show, and it will be fine. I did this video in the store, and there were customers coming in and out, so I'm just doing a voiceover for the rest of the video. But I just wanted to show you, I just had a couple more ruffles here to do, and I'm making a fabric, the fabric mesh. And if you're not familiar with fabric mesh, it's made of polypropylene, but it also has a polyester thread in it. And that really gives it a great texture and a more dense feel. And the snowed mesh is very thin, and it has like a sprayed on the little white puffy part, and it really does not unravel, but it is thin, so you probably wouldn't want to make a whole wreath out of the snowed mesh. You probably need something else, you know. If you're doing ruffles, you probably need something else under it to have enough density to cover up your work wreath. I'm down to the last twist on the inner ring. Our work wreaths, whether they're work wreaths or pencil, have about 18 twists on the wreath. So that's why I cut 18 pieces of each style of mesh and putting a layer of 2 ruffles in each twist. You can see how thin the snowed mesh is, but I really like it. I think it would be even good for like weddings or other events and so forth. So this is the first wreath I've made with that mesh, so I think I'm gonna like it. And I really like the white fabric mesh. That's brand new. We've had fabric mesh for a long while, but we didn't have it in white, and they made the white just for us. So after you do your ruffles, you can just, fluff those out a little bit. If you don't want your twist to show, you can tuck them to the inside. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter to me whether they show or not, but if you don't like it to show, you can just tuck them to the inside. So there's the wreath after we've gone around it with the ruffles. Now we're ready to attach the sign. Now you can just find your position, where you want to put your sign, if you want to put it off to the side or to the center. Either way is fine. It does have a burlap string for hanging if you are going to hang it on a tree or make a door hanger out of it. So we're going to attach it with chenille stems. So it's made out of MDF. So I took 2 chenille stems and a heavy-duty stapler. And when you use something like a heavy-duty stapler, you want to be sure that you don't go all the way through the board and let it, come out on the front. But just use those staples. And what I did was, after I put the staples in, then I went ahead and pulled the chenille stem up through the staples and secured it, gave it a twist, and just put one on each side to attach the sign. I wanted to show you the mesh holder a little closer up. It has 3 dowels or 3 rounds on it there that you can hang like 6 rolls of 10-inch mesh or 3 rolls of 21-inch mesh. And this is collapsible. Those little buckles unbuckle and you can fold that up. But you can put your mesh, your ribbon on there and slide it under that measuring stick on the front, and that kind of holds it. But it comes from Susie's Wreath Shop. To attach the sign, just find your placement, and then you want to flip the wreath over and kind of work your fingers in to where you can get a hold of the chenille stems, and use the chenille stems to attach the sign directly to the work wreath frame. Now you don't want to push the sign in too far into the mesh, to flatten it down too much. But just find your place, and if you'll find a straight bar, that makes it a little bit easier to attach, and it'll keep your sign in position. So just use the chenille stems. It doesn't have to be chenille stems. You can use, there's some little stick-on tabs that you can use to attach your chenille stems. So there's lots of different ways of doing it. But one of the easiest ways is just use chenille stems and staple it to the back of the sign, and then secure the sign to the work wreath frame. I thought for this wreath that I would just make bows instead of doing ribbon strips. So I've got several different patterns there, and that little folded end of the ribbon, you just might as well cut that off because you'll never straighten it out. So that's a 1.5-inch ribbon that's velvet with the black edge, and then a real heavily glittered 1.5-inch, and then another 2.5-inch. All the ribbons are wired, and they all have 10 yards on the roll. I'm going to start out with the snowflake ribbon and just go ahead and make a dovetail cut on the end of that ribbon. You can cut it at an angle or do a dovetail, just whichever you prefer. I'm using the Easy Bow Maker, and we sell those on Trendy Tree. Of course, all of our ribbon came from Trendy Tree. The bow maker has measurements on it to help you make your loops all the same size, and it has a little ribbon holder on the right side there that you can use to hold your ribbon. So I'm going to start out with about an 8-inch tail and just pinch that up, give it a twist, drop it down in between the pegs. All the pegs are doing is just holding the ribbon for you. And then I'm going to make a 6-inch loop, and then you pinch that up and give it a twist, get the right side up again, drop it down in the slot. Okay, and then you're going to make a same 6-inch loop on the opposite side. And if you want to, you can go ahead and kind of separate your loops and tails. That just, saves you a little bit of, when you go to fluff your bow, it just makes it a little bit easier. And there's lots of different ways to make bows. This is just simply one way. Measure that tail about 8 inches and cut that ribbon free, and go ahead and dovetail or chevron the end of that ribbon, and then you're ready to pick out your next style. I thought I would start with the red on the bottom because I have all white mesh and I wanted to use a lot of red in the ribbon. So I just kind of spread out the loops and tails and kind of had them opposite from each other. And you can always, if your tails are not exactly the same, you can always shorten those, after you're done. Next, I'm using a 1.5 inch, and usually on the 1.5 inch ribbons, I just cut those ribbons at an angle. It's just a matter of preference. Doing the same 8-inch tail, pinch, drop it down in the slot, and I'm making the same size loop. I'm making a 6-inch loop. And when you're using the Easy Bow Maker, you can make it so many different ways. You could put 2 loops on each side if you want to, or 3 loops, odd numbers. I wanted to make 3 bows just alike, so I'm gonna do all 3 of them just alike. So that's a 6-inch loop on each side, and then continue with the 8-inch tail and cut the ribbon off, and then you're ready to go to the next ribbon. The next ribbon is a white with a glitter swirl pattern. It's a really pretty snow white ribbon. Doing the same, an 8-inch tail, pinch it up, twist it, drop it in the slot, make a 6-inch loop. The measurements on the Easy Bow Maker just kind of help you keep your loops all the same size. Well, if you want them all the same size, we're going to make them a little bit smaller in a minute, but right now we're keeping the loops 6 inches. On these next 2 ribbons, we're going to drop the size of those down a little bit and make them about 5.5 or 5 inches. Next is the velvet. I love this ribbon. It's velvet with a black chenille edge, and we're going to, I think I kept the tail about the same. It may have been a little bit shorter than 8 inches, but I did drop the loop down to about 5 inches, and 5 inches on each side. And then, excuse me, I'm going to finish up with the, going to use the snowflake ribbon again. And you can vary your ribbons. You can use all 2.5 inch or all 1.5 inch. You can change them up, mix your patterns up. That's a good thing about a bow like this. You can just put all different kinds of ribbons together, and it's really great for using up your scrap ribbon. For ribbon that you've only got, a yard or 2 of. Sometimes I might have 2 loops of one ribbon, and that be the only loops I have of that ribbon. So it's a great way to use up your scrap ribbon. This last loop was made at about 5 inches also, those last 2 loops. Just a little bit smaller, just a size down. You're building your bow from the bottom up. on this particular, with this bow maker. Okay, so now we're about ready to take it off the board. You want to press that down. You want to make that stack as tight and snug as you can get it. So you're going to ease it off the board. You're going to ease it off the board. Just slip your fingers under it. You want to make sure that you hold on to it tight. And you can see that the ribbons are just all stacked up. The layers are all stacked up. So hold on to it tight. And I'm using a chenille stem. You can use floral wire or you can use a zip tie. Put it across the top and bring it around to the bottom of the bow and give it a twist. Sometimes it's easier to hold the chenille stem and twist the bow. So twist that tightly several times. And just spread your chenille stem out. And then I like to, you don't always have to do this, I like to take sometimes another piece of ribbon to cover up that chenille stem. And, you know, if you're using floral wire, you know, it won't even show. And that chenille stem wouldn't show much either. But it's just, you know, different ways of doing things. So I'm just going to take that 1.5 width of ribbon and fold it over to make it narrow, and then just go over the front of the bow, bring it around to the back, just tie it in a knot and clip those ends off. And that just kind of, you know, covers up that chenille stem and finishes it off a little bit. You can do that step or not, it doesn't really matter. And just trim those tails off. And then you still got your chenille stem there to attach your bow to your wreath. Now all you need to do is just kind of fluff out your bow. You just put your fingers in there and just kind of separate the loops and tails and just fluff it out. I made 3 bows just alike and there's still ribbon left over. You can just kind of fluff out those loops and, you know, put your hands kind of underneath the tails and kind of give them a little bit of curl, but just fluff those out to where you can see all the different loops and tails. I made 3 bows just alike. Of course, you can use your ribbons. You can do ribbon strips and add ribbon strips and bows. You can do loops and tails. You can do a variety of different ways with your ribbon. But what I thought I would do would be put like 2 bows up to the top, kind of to the left of the sign, and then 1 bow toward the bottom. There's our wreath after we finished it. I made 3 identical bows and just attached the bows to the work wreath frame. And I kind of positioned the sign at an angle. And I made a hanger for the back of the wreath just using a chenille stem. So be sure to clean up the back of your wreath and get anything that's sharp, you know, out of the way so it won't scratch your door. And if you don't want your twist to show from the wreath, you can just tuck those to the inside. Okay? Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe. There's a link down at the bottom of your screen on the right or the left. I don't remember, but hit the bell and you'll get an announcement every time we have a new upload to YouTube. Thanks.